The topic for the dialogue right now is Rise of Influencer Branding, the New Age PR. I'll repeat the topic for the dialogue right now. This is about Rise of Influencer Branding, the New Age PR. I'll be requesting them to get the chairs. I think we need to remove few chairs. थोड़े chairs हम लोग को हटाने पड़ेंगे. So I'll request you to keep 4 chairs. आप 2 please हटा दीजिए. Maybe these 4 can remain. Corner के जो 2 है वो आप हटा दीजिएगा. Experience in the country and overseas, working in large, reputed, professionally managed national and multinational companies like Godrej, GE, Marks and Spencers, Coca-Cola, and SR at board levels in areas of leadership, HR, IR, and labor laws. Adil ji has experience of corporate working in areas of law, industrial relations, human resources, marketing, and OD at senior management and board levels as well. So that's all about our moderator for this session. I'll now be introducing our speakers in alphabetical order, and then I'll be requesting all of them to kindly join me over here on stage together. Our first speaker for this session is Kiran Bhambhani, Marketing Head, West and South Zone at Tata Realty and Infrastructure Limited, a seasoned professional with 12 plus years of extensive experience in the real estate sector as a marketer, storyteller, and creative chronicler. Kiran ji has made significant contributions to the industry's sales and marketing domain through innovative strategies. She has adeptly combined on-ground sales acumen with a strategic approach to brand and marketing, having spearheaded projects across major Indian cities like Mumbai, Pune, Nagpur, Ahmedabad, Goa, Chennai, and of course, Bengaluru. Our next speaker for the session is Medha Tawde, Marketing and Strategy Head, India and South Asia, KONE Elevators. Medha ji is a global leader, strategic marketer, and digital transformer, and is now a part of KONE India and South Asia leadership team. Through 20 plus years of making and shaping local as well as global brands and businesses, she is certainly a promoter of customer experience. We also have with us today for this session Shweta Powar, founder and CEO Aria Communications. Shweta ji possesses 2 decades of experience, and her areas of expertise include real estate, technology, healthcare, lifestyle, corporate, Bollywood, and of course education. With over 17 years of experience and a natural talent for creativity, Shweta ji has led successful campaigns that bring communication strategies to life. She advocates for action-driven, purpose-led communications that foster transformation and influence new behaviors and cultural dynamics. Ladies and gentlemen, can I please request all of you to clap loudly and appreciate the presence of our speakers for the session as I request them to kindly join me over here on stage, please. Everybody over here, our honorable moderator and our speakers, can I please request you to join me over here on stage, please. Yeah. Everybody, the stage is set, the panel is ready. Over to you, sir, please.
All right, thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Indeed, number one, very glad to be out here, very positive about the session that we are going to have, and I'm sure that this so erudite a panel that I'm trying to moderate to discuss a very, very critical topic, which is going to be the influencing topic for the coming few years, whilst the entire world is going digital and is going in the space of social marketing. With the change that's happening, what one sees, it reminds me of this beautiful Faiz quote, which says, "Ab ranjishon se ulajhne ka banaye rakhiye hausla, kyunki badalti hawa hi karti hai chirago ka faisla." So it is no longer a situation that, the lamp is supposed to be only giving light. The first job of the lamp is to be able to survive the winds of change, because God forbid if it is not able to manage the winds of change, its ability to give light is not going to exist. And therefore, the winds of change that we are seeing in the digital space, the winds of change that we are seeing in the growing influence of marketing in the social media space, and the role of influencers, and that's exactly what we are going to discuss. Of course, don't want to spend too much of time on trying to evolve the backdrop of this subject, because we've got around 35 minutes and 3 very intelligent and erudite speakers. But I will give you a little bit of background about this subject, and I was just making some notes while sitting out here. So I would say welcome to this entire world of YouTube stars. Welcome to the game streamers world. Welcome to the world of podcasters. Welcome to the world of bloggers and engaging thought leaders on LinkedIn. Welcome to digital content creators. Welcome to internet celebrities. Welcome to OTT stars. Terminologies which until the last 10 years were not even known to the world. If you are not calibrated on one of these terms today, possibly the government of India may ask you to actually give KYC for your Aadhaar card. Because how could you be living in this space without having endorsements from any of these areas as one of the players out there? 64% of consumers in the market today are actually taking and making their choices to go or buy or take some services based on not what their families and friends are saying, but it is based on what their identified favorite influencers are recommending. Ask your daughter or ask your son, if you're going to a hotel to stay for a holiday, whether he would want to ask his neighbor or would want to go on social media and find out as to what are the ratings given by some of the favorite people who are the drivers of influence on the choices she makes there. And that's where it is. So 64% of consumers are actually making the choices on the basis of that. The world is collectively spending 11.5 billion hours a day. Shocking? 11.5 billion hours per day on social media, which means that on an average, 63% of the population which is using social media is on an average spending something like 2.5 hours on social media. And that's the kind of growing influence social media is going to have, whilst the print media and all coexist at a given point of time. We have seen the impact of this. Open a Times of India newspaper, and for the first 4 pages, there are no news at all. There's only advertising, because they're still thriving on the old world advertising. But the changing world is going to make those kind of things. So it is with this kind of a backdrop that we are going to be talking. And we have 3 very, very intelligent, erudite speakers with us who are exponentially involved in using this kind of influencer brands in their products. They all come from different spaces. Unfortunately, one of our panelists who was involved with us at some point of time could not make it today because she's unwell. So Pooja is not going to be with us today. So that gives us, that's good news and bad news. Bad news, she can't make it and you won't have that experience. Good news is that the ladies will have a little more time to be able to elaborate their points than the goldfish kind of answers we were expecting within the short span of time. So that's what actually I'm going to be doing. I've got some rough questions only, which are only an indicator of what we are going to be discussing. And I'm going to be asking these questions. So let me begin with you, Kiran, by asking this question. When you say influencer brand, and I think this is a general confusion, because people in the space of marketing are actually confused between, is it an old wine in a new bottle? Haven't we all heard of celebrity endorsers? Haven't we known of celebrities endorsing brands for the longest period of time? One of the experiences I had is I'd worked with Coca-Cola for 14 years, and I know in the history that in 1900, Coca-Cola used a celebrity endorser who was an opera dancer. Now the question is, how is it different? Is it something very different? Or is it the same thing, just tons of wordsmithery around it, and we call it influencer branding?
Thank you, Adil, for the question. I think these two are very, very different. Because celebrity endorsements were actually based on the value of aspirations. Because people used to buy products knowing that ठीक है ये celebrity use कर रहा है ना तो बहुत अच्छा होगा मुझे भी use करना चाहिए. But here when we come to influencers, they're actually branding products that they're using. There's a community value that comes in there where they're building communities together, and there are a lot of niches that are created where somebody's a fashion influencer, somebody's a beauty influencer, somebody's a gaming influencer today. They're actually very, very well versed with the topic that they're speaking about, and hence more connective with the audience. It's more like peers talking to you rather than somebody guiding you to do what to do. So that's kind of more connective to the audience.
So where is the influencer part of it? It is only still aspirational. So if you see a film star saying, I stay in building XXX at Worli Seaface, then the world is expected to say, okay, fine, if he's staying, I should aspire to do that. So is it just pure aspirational brand positioning, or is it something more as an influencer?
As an influencer, you're actually maybe using the product. So you have makeup influencers, for example, who are actually trying different shades of lipstick, showing you how they're looking on them, and then asking you to try. They're actually, because it's not necessary that they're actually working for a brand once, so they're building communities that are very naturally evolving over a period of time, and then slowly taking on brand endorsements that they believe in, rather than really, having a superficial endorsement saying, okay, fine, drink Coca-Cola, but I'm not drinking it because I care about my diet. That kind of
In fact, we had a very horrible experience that, we had identified a few celebrities, and one of the celebrity, whilst being paid for the product, was drinking Coca-Cola, and in a cricket match, we saw, the photographers picked him up drinking Pepsi, and then the whole havoc happened. That are these celebrities actually supposed to be walking and talking the brand values after the period of endorsement is over, or is it that, you just advertise for it and it's over? So how do you handle such a situation?
What's also very different in this case is that the celebrity is actually talking, that's what I'm saying. The celebrity is actually on a diet, but is also saying, Aria, main Pepsi peeta hu. So that's the difference.
Yeah.
But yes.
Just first of all, thank you Reality Plus for making me part of this platform. Happy to be part of a women-dominated panel, Adil.
That's good.
Yeah. So just to add to what Kiran has said, it is all about credibility, okay? As you rightly said, a Pepsi's and celebrities endorsing a cola and then spotted having Pepsi, okay? Now in this case, you have to see if the agreement of the celebrity is still there with an X brand, or is it kind of over, or is it that the kind of communication or the whole kind of, the celebrities' promotions have changed completely. Like, as she rightly put in, has he become a fitness freak? Like, so then obviously he does not endorse a cola or a Pepsi. Then he just goes to some kind of a health drink. So it is all kind of, ensuring that what the celebrity is also doing at that particular time. But obviously, if the celebrity is in the contract, then that's something definitely which is violating the contract of the brand.
And you are so right, because what is critical is that suppose the celebrity at some point of time starts behaving in some way which is not aligned to your brand values, then what do you do? Because some of them enter into some kind of gossips and things like that. At some point of time you may say, I don't want my brand to be endorsed. So what do you do with an influencer? Does the same rule stand for an influencer as well?
So what I have noticed is when it comes to influencers, now there are two types of influencers. One which is all about views, and one which is about content and news, okay? Ideally, when a brand is looking for an influencer, it's very important aspect to understand what's the credibility of that influencer, So if it's a health brand, obviously the credibility is something which stands as the primary aspect of the influencer and needs to be considered. Now, how does this credibility get built? It's obviously because of the content, the strategizing of the content that the influencer is conceptualization. So that is something which is very important when you're looking at a credibility of an influencer to be associated with a brand. If at all, as a professional, you had to ask me whether I will go for views or whether I will go for content, I will go for the content and the packaging and the credibility. So I don't feel everything is about news at all.
Before I come to you, Medha, I thought that because the whole exercise is about, sharing the learning experiences and things like that, I think we should define what an influencer is in the social media context, because it has a very different contextual reference. So social media definition of an influencer is that he is a hyper expert in any particular domain or a segment of business with a very high following on social media. So number one is he has to have a reference as a hyper expert. He has to have a very large social media following, and he should be able to blog, write, or do whatever he does as his tool to be able to influence his followers, to be able to position your brand in that space and influence the follower to buy your product or your idea or your philosophy, which you are then pushing. So there are 3 or 4 elements which are much beyond the general use of influencer in lay language. So Medha, what do you feel? How do you develop oneself as an influencer? Because one is the brand using influencer. The second is if people are aspiring to become influencers, because tons of young children, if you meet, you say, what are you doing? I want to become an influencer. So how does one become an influencer?
Okay, hello everybody. First and foremost, I just wanted to reflect a little bit on the conversation that's been going on for the last 5 minutes. So my view on influencer marketing, it's not really black and white. There are a lot of grays in that, right? Your Bollywood cricket celebrities, are they influencers? Are they better influencers? And your digital content creators, are they better influencers? Your micro influencers are better. I think there are too many varied levels of influencers in today's ecosystem.
Sure.
But I think fundamentally, as a marketer, what is most important is that, where do you see any of this fit in your core strategy? I think that's the most important thing. Strategically, what it is that your objective is, and therefore, what is the influencer that you need to collaborate with? I think that's most important. Unfortunately, we all know without naming in the last few weeks what's been happening, but unfortunately in the age where everybody has a mobile phone and everybody can shoot and create reels out of it, I think brands have to be very, very careful in terms of what they do and what they wouldn't do. I saw a very interesting reel in the last, I think a couple of weeks back on Alia Bhatt at one of her talk shows, maybe on Karan Johar or some talk show, saying that how eating sugar is bad and how she stays away from sugar and so on and so forth. And an interesting reel on after that going viral, showing her endorsing for pork, endorsing for all kind of sweeteners. So I think that's very, very important in the digital age and the social media age. It's very important for brands to drive strategic partnerships with collaborators. So that's most important. That's one. The other thing is, I personally, having done influencer marketing in a B2C business and now in a B2B business, I think quantity over quality, I think, has always been most important for me. Because today, I think followers should not be the benchmark or the yardstick for choosing the right influencer, because we all know here that it's very easy to buy followers, right? So I think it's very, very important for me. I always tell my team that it's important to understand the quality of engagement that influencer is driving. So that's most important. So therefore, from my angle, Adil, coming back to you in terms of, and I know, in Coca-Cola, erstwhile, and of course, I wouldn't say right or wrong about it, the category probably demands that, but it's always been on the back of celebrity influencers, right? Whether it was Coke or it was Pepsi, it's always been about Bollywood influencers. But maybe for a category like that, what those influencers essentially do is more than endorsing the brand, it's also about recall. Because for a category like that, being top of mind is most important, right? To be able to drive any kind of consumption. So I think business to business, what is your core strategy and how your influencer therefore fits into that strategy, and therefore the choice of influencer, the choice of platform is very important. Coming back to your specific questions, therefore, what is important if you're aspiring to be an influencer, I think to understand the subject well, to be a subject expert matter, and to genuinely be a consumer of that product is most important to be a successful influencer. Because today, the consumers seek authenticity more than anything else. And especially the Gen Zs and the millennials who are actually, the next customers or consumers, for them, everything that matters is about authenticity. So I think it's most important for any aspiring influencer or for marketeers and companies when they're looking at any kind of collaborations to understand how much of authenticity is that influencer also. And it's really agnostic to whether he's a Bollywood celebrity or he's a cricketer or he may be a content creator for all you know. So I think quality of engagement over followers and what organically fits into your brand strategy is most important.
So Kiran, the question for you is that are there agencies available which help you to identify influencers? Or is it that the marketing head and the marketing organization is constantly on social media trying to see who are the people, who are the influencers, who fit in well with the brand value proposition? How does the search begin?
It's actually both ways, because we also approach agencies because they know the approximate cost, because the first thing that we would do is share a budget with them and they would know what influencers fit in that budget. That's one. And secondly, also we're of course always on Instagram and scouting, and we know what competition is using, what kind of influencers are getting used there. That, and also in case you do not want to go with very industry specific influencers and want to go with general influencers, that's also something the agency can support you with.
So are the scripts written for them? That do you tie up with the identified influencer and tell him, look, we want you to do the influencer role for our brand, therefore now we want you to change the style of your writing, or maybe your script needs to be writing these more because because that fits in well with my brand value proposition. How do you do it?
So we at Tata Realty have a very interactive, brief kind of a model where we build the script together, because it's also important for you to bring about what the influencer originally stands for in terms of their tone of language or the words that they use or their approach to it. So it's kind of a strong, partnership between both, because it's important for them to also understand our brand values to be able to translate that into the script. So it's a kind of a joint effort, I would say.
And Shweta, now that the world of influencer is becoming a very well recognized, is it a paying world? Do influencers really get paid? And what are the kind of payments they get?
So now again, there are various categories of influencers that you look at. You start with your mega, then again you have your macro, micro, and nano. So if you go at your nano, it starts anywhere from like 20,000 K, but if you go to your mega, it per post, per story goes to around 15 lakh to 20 lakh, like. And again, if you go for a celebrity, like if you go for a Virat Kohli or a Rohit Sharma, where you want to buy the digital rights, then the game is in crores, like, where they have to just, it can be a self-shot video that they will do for the brand, like.
So suppose if you were to go to a business management school and the students were to ask you this question, I aspire to be an influencer, what should I be doing? What would you tell them?
See, what I feel today, when you want to become an influencer, it is important to have engagement. And engagement is something that you can't buy it. You have to build it over a period of time. For the simple fact, Rome was not built in a day. So, an influencer can't just get viral. You can have influencers who are dancing around the trees, like, but I don't think that would really make sense to any brand, like. So if you have to become an influencer, it's very important you understand what is your niche you want to create, okay? You have to ensure that your content conceptualization is to another level altogether that is very engaging, and you have to track your progress in terms of how the content is getting seen at every specific space, like. And lastly, I feel if it is any influencer or creator, I strongly feel they should not compromise on any kind of, bypassing norms or violating any kinds of norms, guidelines, and protocols. Because most of the times I've seen where, there is a product which they are doing for the social media, obviously because they're getting paid. But then, do you believe in the credibility of the product? That is something which is extremely important. So I'll give you two references here, like, there's holistic lifestyle nutritionist Luke Coutinho, okay? He will not endorse any product unless and until he is 100% sure that it is compliant. He has his team who goes through the product, tests it, and that's when he decides if he wants to go ahead with the product. So I feel these kind of things, you know, the responsible communication and messaging has to be
Authenticity
seen.
and credibility.
Yeah.
Continues to be there.
Yes, which probably I see sometimes which is missing because it's a whole universe. Everyone today, I feel, when you look at just the students who have passed college, they feel it's a very easy job. But influencer is not an easy job. It's a very responsible communication that has to go across.
So Medha, this is a very, very subtle game you got to play. Because if the world knows that someone is actually an influencer and is trying to influence the opinion of his followers to be tying in with a brand that he's just trying to sell and everyone knows there's money inside. So how do you play this subtle game where the influencer is aware that he is supposed to influence, but the followers are not supposed to be really knowing that he is influencing the brand choice?
Yeah, so to answer your earlier question, I think how much money they make, I think they are the next genre of millionaires. They really make shitloads of money. It's a complete business now. Really envious at that. Sometimes I wonder that why did I spend 20 years doing what I did.
To add, just to add to her, by 2026, the influencer market is going to be like INR 3,375 crore. So that's the boom that the market is going to see.
I just read a figure, I don't know whether yours is right or mine is, that it is going to be a $26 billion market.
Yes.
Yeah.
The influencer brand market worldwide is going to be a
Right.
$26 billion market. So you can imagine the size that's going to
Yeah,
happen.
it can be a career choice for our children, really, if they do it right. They'll make a whole lot of money.
Do you want to redo your career again and become an influencer?
Don't mind. But no, to answer your question in terms of, you know, what the influencer does and therefore what is the takeaway for
No, so how
people
do
who
you
are watching
manage the
balance.
tightrope
Yeah,
walk?
yeah. So I think there are various ways in which you do it, right? You know, when it comes to the likes of maybe SRK or Virat, where, you know, it's another league, you know, where there is a certain stature of influence that they have. But that's more in terms of either you're trying to kind of, as a brand, reach out, you know, you need to have that mass reach, and you're trying to want to do that in a quicker time, then that's probably the choice for you, right? If you're looking for somebody who's, you know, who wants to kind of build credibility for your brand, you know, who wants to cement the reputation, who wants to further reinforce or strengthen, you know, the credibility or reputation of your brand, then you choose a kind of an expert who's probably a subject matter expert in that. Like in our case, I would say, so we sell elevators and escalators, right? It's a very, very technical product. So if I have to choose an influencer, depending on what I want to do, if I want to make KONE, say, a top-of-mind household brand, where if I ask anybody on the streets, are you aware of KONE elevators, and he say, humko pata hai KONE kya hai, then I would probably, my choice of influencer would be very different, right? But if I want to kind of build or cement the credibility or the reputation and the trust that my brand has to offer, then I would probably look at, you know, urban planners. I would probably look at architects. I would probably look at technical consultants.
So can I put you to the spot for a minute?
Yeah.
Suppose, and I'm making a hypothesis on this, you are with KONE, and suppose a KONE elevator had a fall, and 2 people died, and there is huge market backlash on your brand, and you are in the social media one of the most hated person, how are you going to identify, or who would you identify as influencers to change the market positioning and perception on social media?
Okay, so thankfully that has never happened and will never happen.
Touch wood. Let's hope it doesn't happen.
But I think if hypothetically speaking, if any of that was to happen with any elevator brand, I think the most important thing is for the brand to take accountability and responsibility for that and influence that conversation in a different, in a way that it kind of builds the trust back, right? So that is one thing that we would stay away from any influencers to begin with as a first step of mitigating that. Secondly, over a period of time when you have mitigated a situation like that, then you would probably, the best bet would be your own customers. Who, you know, your customers who've kind of, you've served over the years, your repeat customers who have trust with you. So they are probably the next bet. And also in a business like ours, or any B2B business for that matter, where audiences are very niche, where businesses is repeat, I think your customers are your biggest influencers, your biggest advocates. At KONE, we always believe that customer references are paramount, you know. So for us, we always focus on that. I don't know how many of you all follow us on LinkedIn, but a lot of our content is about the projects that we, that we collaborate with. Whether it's the Merdeka 118 at Kuala Lumpur, which is the second largest, tallest building in the world, whether it's any new project that's coming up in UAE, whether it's the world's largest passenger elevator, which we build at the Nita Mukesh Ambani Cultural Center. So it's always about customer references, because I believe they are your biggest advocates, and that's your biggest influence that you can have for a business like us. Of course, for a business, maybe in the category, which is a fast-moving category, the game is completely different. So I think it's very important to understand what you want to do, what are you using that influencer for. That is most critical. And the other thing which I wanted to reflect on is, I think the core idea is very important to drive any kind of engagement. Whether it's a Bollywood celebrity, whether it's a small content creator, anybody, I think the core idea of the brand is most important. And some of the ideas that have stayed with me, one that I would like to share, and this was, I think, even much before the influencer marketing really exploded. I think Sony Handycam had done an interesting influencer activity with a Nat Geo photographer way back. I think I'm talking about 15 years back, where they just gave a Handycam, when they launched a new Handycam, they gave it to a Nat Geo photographer, one of the biggest one at that point in time, and they said, okay, now you go for the next 2 months, and you record your experience with the Handycam, right? And that was the biggest content, and that's the biggest influencing, any kind of influence that a brand can have. So I think it's also important to understand and have an idea which is cemented and rooted in what your brand is all about, and something that when anybody, the audience, looks at it, there is a certain level of authenticity and relevancy, and they just connect with that content. So I think that's most important.
So Shweta, the question for you is that you are a communications expert and you manage many companies and their communications from social media perspective. Have you handled the entire strategy of managing an adverse situation which your client may have been facing, and you have used an influencer to be able to change the perception?
So fortunately, there has not been any major adverse situation till
Correct.
now.
Good.
Okay. But what I will again here like to say is, it's very important that in case if there is an adverse situation, I feel, let me just take you back 10 years back, okay? There were influencers, so that was 1.0, where influencers were the voices, okay? 2.0 is where influencers became the brand ambassadors. And now what is 3.0? It is transitioning. Your CEOs are your new brand ambassadors. If you take the example of Sugar Cosmetics, if you take the example of Baby Chakra and all, where CEOs have come forward. So they are living in the brand day in and day out. So who more credibility than the company CEO? So if at all there has to be an adverse situation, in my case, I would rather go for my company CEO who comes out and endorses the product because they are responsible. Because I feel somewhere that is responsible messaging. That's somewhere how I will handle the situation, because today I feel the influencer marketing is here to stay. It's not going away. And I just feel the growth is so strong, in the coming years, So we have to understand and basically apply very smartly on how we have to use it in particular situations.
I would just want to add to that. I think if I remember correctly, when Cadbury's went through that huge, I think at that point in time, if I remember correctly, they got Amitabh Bachchan to be able to kind of, obviously after certain level of that whole controversy having died down, I think they did this whole campaign with Mr. Bachchan, in terms of trying to reverse the conversation or shift the narrative. So yes, there have been examples of that,
in fact,
of course.
we also had used it, when Coca-Cola faced the pesticide issue. Yes. We had roped in, Amir Khan to be able to do the conversion at that point of time. And he did it successfully. So Kiran, tell us your story. Tell us a positive story now, no longer into the morbid space of adversities and things. Tell us a positive story, how a organization as reputed as the Tatas have used influencers. Actually, is it right to use influencers? Because indirectly you are trying to tacitly influence people differently than how they would have perceived your brand. So is it ethical to use influencers without market's knowledge that you are using an influencer, or is it valid?
So the way we at Tata use influencers is more to show the product rather than influence people. So it's more they going through the product, and it's more like a product evangelist that we are using influencers today as compared to somebody saying, you know what, I have lived in this house, come and live, because it's not authentic. I would have somebody, take them through the product, tell them about the amenities, and then just say, you know what, come have a look at it. Because like we were also discussing, and Medha also touched upon it, that our customers are our influencers. So we have a lot of customer user-generated content through customers that we create to influence people rather than go through Instagram influencers also.
Sorry.
Yeah. So just to add to what she's saying, now there have been so many influencers. So where you look at your celebrities also, there is some kind of an insecurity because the influencer market is growing stronger. And obviously, commercially, sometimes I feel for certain brands, influencers are more viable than having a celebrity on board. So strongly what I feel when you look at certain markets, certain geographies, it's no longer that today you need a Kapoor or a Khan to endorse your product. If you select the right kind of influencer who is engaging your audience in a right format, obviously you have nailed it right.
Imagine Alia Bhatt endorsing a Harvard education program for senior management, something like that. You would be in trouble. Good. So is there anything, last word, because we got around 3 minutes, so in case you want to spend 1 minute each trying to tell one critical driving point to influencer marketing and the role it's going to become.
Sure. If I may start, I think it's very important to have an influencer who connects with the target audience that you have. Today, if I'm selling a home worth 8 crore rupees, it is important for me to target an influencer who's actually arrived in life. That is why I said customers are my best influencers, because there's no influencer on Instagram so far who will be able to cater to my audience who is between an age of 50 or 45 to 60. So it's very important for you to also segment your audience. I would go ahead with a younger influencer if I want to sell a product of 2 to 3 crores, looking at that individual actually maturing to a stage of buying a house after, say, 5 years or so, and that's the audience that's available on Instagram today. So yes, that's my closing comment on influence marketing.
Super. Medha?
So my closing comment would be know your brand strategy, understand what is your core goal, choose the influencer according to that, choose a platform according to that, choose a format of content that you want to put, and just have a stellar idea in place. I think it all starts with having an idea, and then how you eventually evolve that to the choice of influencer, platform, and content.
So it would be definitely, as she said, you have to identify your target audience, which is very important. Do not ignore the regional, the local market, because that's going to get stronger and stronger in the coming decade. Because your local influencers are again going to be the local trendsetters, and that's a big game again, So I feel, and one more thing, most importantly, on how your brand building can be basically diversified through podcasts, because India globally is going to be the 3rd largest podcast market in the coming years, Yes. So how you have to use that very smartly is what I'll want to sum up with.
I would just want to add to that, Adil. I think, in the next few years, the Gen Zs are going to be the ones who are going to drive what choice of influencer a brand is going to use. I don't think it is going to really be a brand's or a brand's decision to be able to do that, because they are, that genre of audiences or social media consumption that they do is to the next level. Their choice of who they want to follow, who they don't want to follow, what kind they want to content. So I think they are the ones who are going to eventually define. But even if they do, I think from a brand perspective, it's important to understand what's right for your brand.
Sure. So we come to 13 seconds to our session remaining before we throw the questions to you. That's the way the influencing market has been. The word influencer years ago was actually used for philosophers who had the ability, by their ideas and theosophies, to be able to influence social changes in the cultural world. That's how it began. Then years later, and I'm told even before that, the concept of influencing actually came from the celestial movement of stars and their ability to influence by their placement and movements actually life on earth, and therefore it was called influencing at that point of time, to the time in social media where we are saying that there are positive people who are super intelligent, who are subject matter experts, who have huge amount of following on the social media, whose opinions matter to the audience, such that they could influence choices of people, and that's what influencing has come to. So with this, we bring this session to an end. Hope it was an interesting learning experience for you as we throw it open now to you to ask questions. That's where the signal tells me time's up. Please.
Yeah, my question is for Medha. For a commercial elevator brand, what kind of influencers?
What kind of influencers do you use?
Yeah. I mean, it's such a technical product. Architects fall short of talking about that product.
Yeah, so I think I'll tell you what we do, okay, and I'll come to your question as well. But I think for a product like ours, you know, I mean, our biggest core primary customer is developers, right, or infrastructure developers. That's really what our core audience is. So for that customer, the biggest customer, and the way the Indian real estate, you know, developers or builder ecosystem is, there my biggest influencer is my customer. So that really is my, so it's a very, you know, it's a very subtle influence that you do. So the best thing that you can do for something like that is that you give the best experience every time you're selling an elevator for every project that you do for that developer. So that's really your biggest thing that you do. The second thing is what we call is the influencing audience, or, you know, there are, so for us the way we've defined our customer segmentation is that you have your customer who's really buying your product, which is your developer. You have your architect who influences. Then you have a lot of gatekeepers who are there. I know, I mean, it could be procurement, it could be finance, it could be project managers. So each one of them has an influence on the purchase decision. So how do you therefore create content or create any kind of, you know, engagement with each one of this audience in a context of how they are going to influence the purchase is how we look at it. So what we do, interestingly, is that something called moments that matter to every customer segment or every customer cohort that we are looking at. And then how do we create content which goes as a brand to them content? Then how do we need to kind of rope in any kind of external influencers to be able to do that? So that's essentially how we look at it. But yes, having said that, I know even for a commercial elevator, you can also do interesting things. And you can also have very interesting ideas, and to be able to rope in, you know, digital content creators, or for that matter, even celebrity endorsers, depending on what the kind of conversation that you want to have. Like for today, going forward, if I want to have a conversation about safety, which is agnostic to a developer who's buying your elevator, but also for people like us who are using our elevators, I would probably look at an influencer who has, you know, who can lend that voice with a lot of credibility and who has that appeal and reach to consumers. So it's...
I think it's a matter of what kind of narrative do you want to
Absolutely, what kind of narrative you want to build, and to whom.
Good. Any other question? Yes, please. I
Just
think those who have been moderating sessions cannot ask questions,
cannot
right?
ask. So let me not ask a question, but let me make a comment. You talked about very interesting thing of Alia, right? And saying that she should not be.
I know. Humorous, sorry.
So I'm just adding to the humor. Well, she could still be the brand ambassador with saying, "Don't be Alia." Right?
But that she won't say.
Hashtag don't be Alia.
That she won't say.
By the way, she's the only one who'll go ahead and say it with a lot of pride. She did that little thing with AIB, you know, if you remember, where she made fun of herself. But that's about authenticity of conversations.
Correct.
A lot of them are actually jumping as influencers now and saying we are authentic, we are who we are. And therefore,
Okay.
yeah.
Good. No, great point. Thank you so much. Any other? Yeah, please.
Hi, I think lovely panel session. Thank you for this. I think my question's for Kiran. You mentioned a very interesting point, which is, you have your homes which are, 8 crores upwards. And of course, then your marketing for them is very different, right? And in the world of real estate influencer marketing, the likes that we've seen of, the Aa Jao Dikha Dunga, or Ravi Keval Ramani kind of walking through the apartment. At best, I think you do an apartment walkthrough and you're done with that. But my question to you is, if you did have your 8 crore marketing and you did have, if you had to kind of, bring in an influencer, I'm sure you've done a lot of campaigns too. Could you tell us, how, because I'm sure that's obviously, like you said, they're not on Instagram, and of course they're a very different cohort. How would you approach it, or what's the kind of idea that you would look at for that segment, or, kind of doing something different in the world of real estate influencer in that sense?
Sure. So the two things that you mentioned were a walkthrough of the project. And we've done that before. We've done that with some of our projects where we brought in people, gone through the project, just spoke about the amenities and said, why don't you come and see it? And that's how we've kind of looked at that content getting generated. We've done a very interesting campaign at Tata Realty called Celebrate Life, for example, where we've gone ahead and approached homemakers and spoken about what is the best moment on Diwali that they're celebrating in their home. And we've kind of built user-generated content through different homemakers, posting videos, etc. So that has also helped us because that gains a lot of traction. It kind of goes through and a whole, loop of all their friends, etc. They're actually very proud to share what they're doing at home. So these are the kind of influencers, small influencers that now we are creating, generating their own content and telling us how they're enjoying their home or celebrating life with things at their home, and then, tagging Tata Realty, saying hashtag celebrate life with Tata Realty. And this is done with our customers as well, and hence translating to, we're using your home, we're enjoying it. Here are we telling you to come to a Tata Realty home because of so-and-so reasons. So these are the two ways in which we are using influencers as well. Yes, very, very authentic. And not, it's very, very important that way because you can't have in a home, which is very important to individuals, very important to have authentic content.
So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. With this, we come to an end. The time's up is blaring up again and again. So thank you very much for the time you spent with us. Hope there were some learning moments in between. And I thank you for adding value to what we were discussing. Thank you, ladies, for giving such very intelligent answers. If asking questions was a mode to learn, then I'm going back richest with having learned a lot from the answers you have given. Thank you very much.
You,
It was a
Thank
pleasure.
you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. A huge round of applause, please.